Welcome to the BPM360 podcast. I'm Russell.
And I'm Caspar. And together we will help you navigate the treacherous waters of the BPM adoption journey. I hope you enjoy the podcast.
That's right. Listeners, welcome to our next edition episode of the podcast. Russell, how have you been?
I've been great. I'm a bit jet lagged. As you know, I just came over from New York after a short visit there. But I managed to get here in Munich, and I'm there. It's fantastic. I'm completely stoked. I've seen so much already in the couple of hours when running around here. Already got lost on the way here because there's so many people, so many events, so many open spaces. So I've been just completely blasted away.
Absolutely wonderful, man. It's good to have you. I know that you were very tight on time coming from your holiday. Listen, we have two wonderful guests.
Yes.
We're going to come back to them in a minute or two or three, right? I just want to take a little bit of time of discussing what we've seen in the keynote this morning. I mean, we're at this event. We're going to do a short somewhere later today, but what did you notice in the keynote that we saw?
Well, I don't really know where to start because what I do take away from just the keynotes I've seen today is how much focus there is on really making processes better. So, we've been to a lot of events and seen a lot of different approaches here, but it just seems that there's a complete different philosophy behind the whole process thinking. So it's getting things done, aligning, creating value. And what I've also been really, I really saw and got to see also at some demo booths was actually the way people are really thinking of incorporating AI in this whole process, process of process management.
Yeah.
So that's something I took away, and what I really liked as well is especially Exxon Mobil and the Pfizer talks, real customer applications, how they really always argue the value on what they are doing, how they're making processes better, and how they're managing to actually do this across the let's say the whole enterprise. So here it's so my initial takeaway from a lot of customers is always they started with pilot projects, a process mining, and they get stuck there somehow. And it's so great to see in the keynotes how companies have taken it to the next level, onto an enterprise level, thinking global, and using it as a platform to collaborate. Interrogate, I heard as well, but also then to make change happen. And that's what I really like. So it's not about just claiming and managing and all these lame words. It's about doing things, changing things for the better. That's really my key takeaway of the whole vibe of what's been spoken about on the keynotes.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And I think when you look at the entire, let's say, portfolio of things that Celonis will now put to the table, where you have the mining side and the management side and the orchestration and the whole AI side with the agency, I like the wordplay on that one, that's just going to be so comprehensive for their customers. So that's going to be very interesting. Cool. We'll save the rest for our shorts episode later on, and I'm going to interrogate you a little more about that. So let's turn to our guests. We have guests.
Yes, we do.
Again, we have guests, which is our red thread in season 2, by the way. So let me just introduce them and then ask them to introduce themselves. So I'm going to start with ladies first. Kerry Brown. Kerry, welcome as a guest. Would you please give our listeners an idea of who you are?
Thank you, Caspar. It's lovely to be here. And I couldn't agree more, Russell, in terms of the vibe of this morning talking about enterprise-wide work, which brings me to me. So I have been at Celonis for a couple of years. My role is lead transformation evangelist, which you can interpret as you will. But more importantly, if I look at transformation, I've been in this space for 30 years. I was a customer of SAP's for 12, and I was SAP for 18. So the topic of transformation and enterprise-wide transformation is a space I've lived and played in a lot and have been playing in at Celonis since I got here.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lovely to have you on the show. And that also applies Oliver. Oliver Zeller, please let our listeners know who you are.
Yeah, thanks, Caspar. Thanks, Russell. Thanks, Kerry. Yeah, I'm Oliver. I was the CEO of Symbio and the co-founder, and my role is now to bring all the mining and modeling pieces together to integrate. But yes, to do a little bit more than only bringing this together, to also innovate and produce new use cases, produce new value to our customer especially in the direction of AI.
Yeah, and then just for the listeners who were not present at our keynote, so Symbio is what's now be referred to as process management within Celonis.
Yeah, we call it Celonis Process Management.
There you go, CPM, that's the spirit. All right, very good. Where are we going to start, Russell? You always have a very intelligent question in the top of your mind.
You're so kind to me.
Pressure.
Yeah, always.
We always do that to each other.
Now, in Caspar's framework, he always starts talking about sponsorship first. Yeah. So maybe here, from your experience, and now looking at, say, the way Celonis is offering a platform for transformation, what is actually your view on how Celonis is a game changer? I mean, you've been working for SAP, as I understood. You worked on the customer side. So what is your take on how Celonis can support customers in business transformation on this global level? What is actually the key philosophy and the capabilities they're bringing to the game? And what do you think is the key success factor here to make it happen?
So many. I'm chuckling since we wanted to make sure we gave Oliver time to talk. I might take the entire 45 minutes. Just kidding.
Go for it. Go for it.
Well, that's an easy episode.
In terms of how to address transformation, I would say that those programs are typically the largest activity, the biggest investment, the biggest program going on, and a priority that is publicly shared, talked about, owned by all the business leaders. So what we bring to it is a facts-are-friendly approach. So when you think about the political debates, the emotional debates of what's scope, how special am I, what do we need, what content can we retire in terms of customization, the analogy I use a lot is moving house. And so Celonis typically has looked at how you renovate, improve, streamline the house you live in. And if I look at transformation, you're moving house. But we can take the knowledge of how you live now to say, how do we prepare to move? And how do we design that house? If all of us are going to go to the same house, we don't move from the same place. So how do we manage through that transformation, not only from a planning perspective, but execution? And then as you move in, how do you manage against adoption? So whether it's planning the system and the scope, testing against it, not taking garbage to your new house in the form of master data, getting rid of what you don't need, but then also making sure that move-in is, business ready and possible, moving through hypercare and adoption where you can see adherence to, are we using the things we need? How do we do that? And how do we support people as they make that shift? Then that investment brings the value, to come back to your earlier point, that is what that organization was looking for. So to me, it's criminal if a customer who has Celonis doesn't use it in one of these contexts, because you have so much information that you could be applying. And it's such a gift to all those people who are making those decisions and working through those programs.
Okay. Can I jump on that for a second?
Oh, yes.
I love the moving house analogy, because I always use the building a house analogy when it talks about process management. Because at the moment that you move house, you move into a new house, you might want to remodel things in your house, right? And you ask a contractor, unless you're really crafty yourself, but normally you will ask a contractor, what's the first question that contractor asks you? You got the blueprints, you got the contract, the construction drawings, which are basically your process models that you have. And if you look at the end users of a house, when you move into a house, what's the thing that you need to find out is, how does this bloody thermostat work? That's the work instruction, I would say, level of how do I do this process? So I love that. I'm going to use that moving house analogy later on. Oh yes, please. But then making a quick bridge, and we're going to go jumping back and forth topics here anyway. If I look at AI, Oliver, you're working a lot in the AI space right now. How would that AI help us to move house more efficiently? Just to keep the analogy going, but you can use any analogy that you want.
I think it's very important to understand your process in the house, but also to give an experience to all your people that live in this house.
Yeah.
What is the best way? So perhaps you explore how you can deal with the thermostat, or you can deal with in the kitchen, whatever you do. Yeah. So you would like to share it, and this information comes from our platform, this process intelligence information. And if we use this information with AI, we can give it on the fingertip to the people. It's much easier. You can talk to it. So imagine it's like Amazon. What is it? The where you talk to, what is the name?
Oh, Alexa.
I forgot this name.
Yeah.
So we will have a new name for that.
Yeah,
in the future.
Of course. Yeah.
So we're working already on that. But you can talk to it. and then you help the people in the house to be more productive and to have more lovely experience. But this is very important. You need the data for this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the experience from other people. So let's assume there are not only 2 people in the house, there are 20 people in the house.
Yeah, yeah.
And in some companies there are 20,000 people in the house.
Well, and that's interesting because Russell, I know you have a son in the same age as my kids. How do they learn new things? They just go to either TikTok or YouTube.
I have the impression he's not learning anything currently, other than ball start. There he's already on expert level. No, typically YouTube, I would guess.
Yeah, but that's
and to add on to that, he looks for the shortest video with the most hits.
Yeah,
true. So that's reference based.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's an interesting one. So imagine if you drag that analogy through to process management or the process landscape of a company, you would like users to also just rate how certain process documentation looks like, and then when they search for it, they'll get the one with the most hits.
When you move into a house, you move in with all sorts of expectations. But to your point of experience, Oliver, you move in and you go, oh, I don't really like that the way I did it. I thought I would. I need this drawer here. I need this cupboard there. You move in and the design is an expectation. Ideally, you've moved in with some knowledge of what you used to do, and you've picked things based on that bit of the house. Like I look at where I live right now. Half my house sits empty. I live by myself. I have a house that's big enough for more than me. But I have half my house that I could just chop off and nobody would know it's there. So if I was going to build a new house, I certainly don't need to build things I don't need.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I don't need to take the boxes from the jobs I had before I worked at SAP to the next house that are still in my basement that I mean to get around to looking at, but I don't.
Yeah.
And so that experience you're creating, the users are who tell you and show you, this is a traffic flow. This is what I do. This is what I like. This is what I don't use.
Yeah.
So just on that part of business transformation, you have a whole company that needs to move house. Yeah. So what do you envision Celonis to be as a platform for which users? How is that changing? Because if you look at it from the beginning, it was like a specialist team working on analyzing the data, putting them into context, and really maybe triggering some specific initiatives to improve the processes. But now we're talking a global level transformation. What is actually foreseen Celonis? Which users do you want to address in future? And I think there is a shift there from the specialist tool for data to a common platform. What is your idea on that, and what do you think is necessary?
Russell, you're 100% right. It's different stakeholders. So if you look right now, the discipline or capability of process management has been built in organizations, in IT, in audit, in shared services, in wherever that might be. If you look at the populations who get involved in these major, across enterprise activities, there's a few different sets of stakeholder groups. I used to talk about SAP projects as sort of 5 to 50 people spend time dreaming up a vision and get a board approval, to then get 50 to 500 people to run that project, so that 5,000 to 50,000 people can go do what the first group thought about. Yep. So those are different stakeholder groups, and similarly to your point, each of those stakeholder groups can use Celonis in different ways. If I look right now, Harman's going to be speaking tomorrow. They use some of the Celonis information in order to prepare for their board presentation to say, what is the right scope? What are the outcomes? What are the value? How do we know that what we're going to be building is going to meet the needs of our organization? They now have a project running. So next set of stakeholders. So you've got some planning stakeholders at senior levels of IT and business there, plus business leaders who are going to make decisions. Next stakeholder group is the project team. So you have global business process owners who might have been involved in the past, but are certainly going to be involved here. You have the process teams themselves, the PMO. You've got the change management team. You've got the testing team, the master data team. The configuration team, all of those people can consume that information in different ways. So if you think about projects like this, very typically, I ran change management globally for Coke. I would ask questions all the time of all the process leads. What's going to be different? How's that going to be different from the past? Talk to subject matter experts, all of that. Now I can do a compare and contrast of what I'm currently doing to where we're headed, and I can see those change impacts and identify a training needs analysis without annoying those people who have 10 other jobs to do. That's one example of a stakeholder group. But all of those, the master data team can look at duplicate records with that. The testing team can look at where do people make mistakes in the past. The PMO can see what's the scope going to be. Business readiness teams, hypercare, super users, all of those groups become part of the actual project. And at the end of the day, frankly, you're building a system for users. So also, getting to where you're providing those dashboards of how processes execute in the hands of people who lead and manage or execute those processes at the end of all this is really nirvana, where the people who are doing procurement, doing manufacturing, doing ... have the information on what is or isn't happening in their process, just like they could have had before the program, but you've now, in the cycle of this program, provided new information. You've democratized access to that good data so that the users who are experiencing something can continue to pull from unstructured data in Process Navigator to say, how do I do my job? They can continue to use a geotag to say, hey, this process needs to change, so that you have an evergreen outcome versus a static outcome. So you're absolutely right that the stakeholder group expands from a COE or a set of process experts and gives process expertise or knowledge or experience to all of these people as an output to do their actual job, which they would be doing without that information otherwise. They might as well do it smarter.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important. We will shorten the time for change with our
100%.
platform, and we will get more and more change makers in the company. So we
100%.
already explored this, that with the new technologies that we are exploring at the moment, it will be possible for more people do their job, and in between, the system will help them to be better and will give this feedback into the change management teams to see, hey, what's going on, what's not good, and continuously improve with all the people. And the change will be getting smaller and smaller. And I think that is also with the new technology the possibility to speed up here.
Yeah.
And therefore, you need this whole enterprise platform with a lot of different capabilities. It's clear, it's agents.
Yeah, you need a governance and you need proper
workflows.
roles on that you need to establish that.
Absolutely.
If you look at the programs over the last 20 years, the PMO capability, the change management capability, the legacy that gets left behind these big enterprise programs that builds a muscle memory in those skills, the process capability will be the legacy that comes of people who do this. They will leave a process footprint and knowledge footprint for an organization to continue to run faster and better.
Okay.
Oh.
Sorry, everyone. Don't know what that was all about.
Technical hip-hop.
Very excited.
That happens in live sessions. No worries.
Yeah.
Back to you, Russell.
God, that really took me off. Let me just think. Okay, so these programs, a lot of the times, big business transformations are all residing in the IT department. Yeah, so that's something. If I take it right, that has to change, or it has to come out of the IT departments, and you need to establish Celonis in a wider business perspective, or is it an own kind of an organization you would set up?
I think it's partially it will move more and more into the business. So the business will be more capable to use the new technologies. It's more easy to change things, but there will be definitely also a team that runs the entire platform, that's clear, but also experts. But we will see there are a lot of more, what is the name, people who can work with the technology very easy. There's a...
ambassadors or
I forgot the name.
Or champions.
I'll go to the point this morning of having a common language. I think that IT is still going to own building systems because they're IT. They build systems. That's part of the purview of their scope of work. What I think it'll do, though, is give us, and what I'm seeing it do now, is give a common language to where the business who may have had some use case experience to process ownership, they certainly own the process. If they've got experience with Celonis, they have some language around that to apply. It's creating a language between IT and the business. Mm-hmm. In the same way as we talked about OCPM changing the way that you can see how processes intersect and giving common language. To me, this is giving common language where the business and IT are both focusing on the process. One has a system that builds and supports that process. Another is the consumer of that process. But that factual information in the middle, the process information, the modeling information, the mining information, gives common facts and common language to dialogue around that and make decisions to it.
But just to add on to that, and just as a real life example, so I worked in the chemical manufacturing industry for about 20 years. And we were dealing with a very long lead time on changes, certainly in SAP. Up to 9 months on average from a change request all the way through deployment in production. And I mean, for me, transformation is a collection of smaller changes that you need to sequentially execute. And the one thing we did, which really helped in the end, is say, listen, we have this common process called management of change, MOC, where the first very step is an impact analysis. And the impact analysis was done always by the same 5 roles. So there was the requester, there was a subject matter expert, and then there was a subject matter expert for IT, for risk, and for finance. Because everything ends up in money, everything ends up in a system, and everything needs to be evaluated from a risk management perspective. And by doing that, you created that common language that you just mentioned, and say, well, yeah, we understand the change, we understand that it needs to be done, and we see that it might have an impact on other processes, because the first thing we did is we went into the BPM platform and says, this is the process that we're talking about, and how is that connected into other parts of the organization? And I think ultimately when we did that, we went back from 9 months to 3 months, and then we started applying process mining into our management of change process. So we connected all the SAP systems, we connected the solution manager, we connected the ticketing system, and then what we saw was purely a behavioral change project that was left, because the business groups complaining the loudest about the long lead times were the ones that taking the most time to approve a cost estimate or do even the user acceptance testing. And once we reported that into the higher management, overnight it stopped. And they were like, yeah, nobody wants to be on the highest, on the shit list on the #1 spot. Nobody does this. So it's always a combination of taking the human element, the behavioral change element into account, together with having that common language. Not sure who's talking that, but anyway.
We're in a big building with a lot going on.
Yeah, just for the record, there's about 2,500 people in this building right now, so we're very lucky to have microphones, to be honest. But so that I really like that common language remark that you made. Having a question for you, Oliver, from this perspective, if you take into account the fact that you have a repository with static information and that you have the mining capabilities, where's AI going to help all that? Because I know that you have a very, very good perception on that and ideas.
Yeah, so we had every time the vision to, I used the metaphor of Google Maps for business, where we have the map, the static information about processes, all the information that belongs to it. And at the end, the city is like a company. And we all know a map without the data makes no real sense. So we all love it to use the Google Maps app to navigate through a city. And it's now we're bringing the map data together with the live data. We already did this with the navigator, and also with other products. But here we can see it really, really nice. And now, if we would like to give an experience like this app where I am. Where I am in the system, where I am at the digital workplace. So in Google, it's easy. It's a point where you are staying, and then you go your way. So and also to understand all the data that belongs to it. And it's not only process data; it's regulated data. It's process knowledge at the end. We have to bring the process knowledge together also with this actual live data, and then we can use this to navigate people. And we already made tests that we, in the digital workplace, realize where a person is working on which topic, and then what should be the best way, the golden path, what is next, and what was in the past. So this becomes reality now. So, and this is a very important topic, all this information. And it's also very important when we use now the AI with our semantic search, with our semantic database, then that we can also get the connections. If we search for a role, that we understand what are the processes, what are the impacts, what are the problems in the process. And this is something we can really, really fast explore with the technology. And it's clear we have a big knowledge. And therefore, it's great to have this structured knowledge for AI, PI. PI needs, I think AI needs PI.
And Oliver,
I believe that.
If I piggyback on that, an example I used to often use is people when they're doing a job at a company. Think about yourself in a mall. You've got that "you are here" dot. You know, there's a you are here, and you can only see what's right in front of you. You can't see what's upstairs, what's downstairs, what's around the corner. And I think that same transparency, common language now with this is giving you what is around the corner, what is above and below me.
Exactly.
And so understanding where I as an employee fit in and where what I do fits into the process upstream and downstream and what impacts I have can give me much more context to do my job well and to improve upon that job and the experience as well. So absolutely that picture I think is something that I as a worker become that democratized contributor, as well as everyone seeing what I'm doing and being able to have that shared visibility as well. Russell.
Russell, yeah.
Taking up that quote that is out the front there, I think you asked the wrong question. You said, what can AI do for process management? It's also the other way around.
Absolutely.
So what can process management do for AI? And it's giving the context. So that's what I think. That's why the IBM keynote was really cool. Where it said, look, there's so much structured data, and then you have the use cases that relied on unstructured data, like documents, policies, contracts, and whatever. So by having like the framework in place and then mapping in the unstructured data, that's the platform for AI to work. So then the AI works for people, that's fine, but the AI without the context is really lost. Yeah? And that's where I think actually the question you have to ask the other way around. And if is that Celonis? Is that the idea of having actually this one framework with all the data in relation to each other as a baseline for AI? I think that's something as a vision that really can carry far. Because that's what a lot of companies just purely are missing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also some of our customers said, if you have this technology with AI, the answer should be regulated. It should be not something that comes out from the AI. Like, that could be a good idea to now place this. This is impossible. So I think we can really help the AI to be much better, much more accurate. And we hear a lot of stories at the moment that people are not really happy with the results of Microsoft Copilot. So I think when we bring our data into that, then it will be much better.
That was the discussion we had this morning on how does AI and PI fit together. And PI really gives you what are the parameters, what are the boundaries that I want to explore. Because otherwise you get disparate information that, while interesting, can be a distraction.
Yeah.
But I love a good analogy, as Russell also knows. Yeah. So imagine this one. I mean, when I was a young kid, like a teenager, I went on holiday with my parents. That was way before cell phones and Google Maps. So I actually navigated using this.
It was a good time, man.
It was a good time. This paper-based street atlas of France, because we always go to France. That is your process knowledge, the way that your roads run in a country.
Yeah.
So fast forward 2024. When I drive now somewhere, I just put Google Maps on and I say, listen, I need to go there. And if there's a traffic jam, it will guide me. Either it will tell me just sit in it and shut up, or it will tell me you might take this detour because it's quicker. What I notice, and I can see the analogies very quickly. Yeah? So you execute a process, you get the live information, the live data from mining or from whatever source, and you can take a detour if you think that's easier. Now, what I also notice with this, and that's more of a human psychology nature, is when I was younger, we would get into a traffic jam. That's just what it was. You just sit there and you wait until you get through it, and there was no. You
didn't know alternatives.
You didn't know alternatives. So now that you know alternatives, the tolerance that people have for long waiting times or for inefficiency just becomes smaller and smaller. And that is something that I think, looking at you, Kerry, not personally, but from a transformation perspective, is something you need to take into account, right?
Yeah, very much so. It's not just a 14-year-old who has ADD. All of us now do the same, look for the shortest video, the shortest number of hits. We all have a very immediate expectation of execution, of resolution, and so the kind of information we're giving people can give them those alternatives and those views for what to do, because none of us have the patience anymore to do something that's not working for very long.
Yeah.
We find another way.
So we're basically creating a whole generation of processed dopamine addicts.
Well, but unless we give people something, like in all this context where you're giving people the kind of information to see how that work can happen, you're also either giving a positive or negative feedback. You're getting a feedback loop on, am I creating variations that are helpful? Am I creating variations that are harmful?
Yeah.
And either me personally or us as an organization or a process owner can start to look at that on an active basis versus just creating those larger and larger spaghetti diagrams with no frame of reference.
Yeah, and no added value. Oh, absolutely true.
So what is your take on looking at this map? That's something that always intrigues me around process management and business transformation is the context of time. So you create a lot of the times, you build the house. No, you don't build the house, you plan the house with the blueprint and you say, that's the house we want to move into. And you already do maybe get some interior designer that we can say that's what you want. But then you have the transformation itself and big business transformations, they take a long time. So you first describe more like a waterfall. So you have a small project team, they have a bigger, then you have the implementation team, and then it expands. But we're talking about 5 years on this journey. So how do you envision that you manage this time factor in it? Also having like this, you have this final picture of an ideal world, but you have a day-to-day like progression and change within all these processes that are documented and the outcomes of it. How is that something that I think currently it's like you have like a milestone and you're blind, and you have like unstructured activities, and then you have some kind of like milestone where you say, where are we now? Do we have to adjust? But there's no real visualization of the transformation itself over time, like a roadmap. I mean, is that something that you're thinking of bringing into Celonis?
Very much so. So actually, ExxonMobil, who spoke this morning, one of the elements of this for them is the business has been a consumer of Celonis for some time. And the business, independent or in concert with the overall program, is using Celonis to be able to see how the business is running now on ECC, and they'll continue to watch how the business is running then on S4 as pieces and parts of their business are running on ECC and S4 simultaneously, because it is a multi-year program. So absolutely there is the ability to see that over time and get a view to what that is. To your broader question though of these take a while, I'll date myself to Karate Kid, you know, when the student is ready, the teacher will emerge.
Wax on, wax
exactly,
off.
wax on, wax off. Thank you. Good. We're all in the same generation. But if you look at that in terms of thinking about the stakeholders, I used to talk about this on projects where you had multi-waves. The people who've already been through it know exactly what it's going to be like. People on the project team have an idea of what it's going to be like. The project team is busy telling the business, this is what's going to happen. And I used to say, like, there's going to be a 12-foot brick wall. It's got this texture, this color, this height. This is what it's going to feel like. This is the speed you're going to hit it at. But everyone is busy doing their day job until they hit that wall.
Oh, yeah.
And you tell them it's coming, you talk about it coming, and then they run into it and they go, where did that wall come from? Why didn't you tell me that wall was coming? And then when you finally get to where you roll it out, the person who ran into the wall for the first time tells a friend and says, by the way, that wall, it's real. It's going to happen. And so when you think about the different stakeholder groups, recognizing and respecting who needs to know what, when they need to know what, is being able to bring that business readiness to the project team, to the process teams, to the business, because they are busy doing their day jobs, making money, generating revenue, servicing customers, and they don't need to worry about this all that time. However, if you give them the process knowledge prior to that program, so that as they're going in, then that language, that capability, that context is something they can consume and will, to Oliver's point earlier, accelerate the ability to adopt, because the understanding will be greater. So in parallel to running the program, you know, as ExxonMobil shared this morning, there's value to be gained, there's projects to be run in year 1, 2, 3 that are relevant now, that are valuable now, while the program's running, that don't conflict with each other, but will build that language and muscle memory so that when the process comes, there's still more knowledge. So I think it's doing what makes sense now for who needs it now, recognizing that in parallel you've got this major program running, and then engaging the different stakeholders as they come along when it's purposeful.
Makes sense.
And
absolutely.
And very important, if you run it in certain processes, that you also have in mind the great picture, the big picture, the enterprise picture, and this is the reason why it's so important to have also this map, this complete architecture, where we bring all together. And then at the end, we can also improve with our common language, especially on this map topic. And I think step by step, you can improve, and then at the end, you get more and more into the complete enterprise.
Yeah, I don't know if the phrase, does junk mail mean the same thing to all of you as it does to me?
Yeah.
Like junk mail that you get at home in your post office, in your mailbox, it's junk mail until you need it.
Yeah.
You know, like if you need your garage, you need your chimney cleaned, it's junk mail until you realize you need it cleaned. Junk mail that comes to you at work is like junk mail at home. All the things you're saying about a project don't matter until they matter to me. And so part of it is bringing the right information all the time, and when it matters to me, I will consume it.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely true. Yeah, that's the psychology around transformation and behavioral change.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of people don't, I mean, when I talk to customers about AI, I must say, so they really struggle asking the right questions because they're just asking their questions that they have, and they really have problems actually understanding. I said, have you talked to your customers? You know, when I talk to process managers, I say, have you talked to your customers and asked them what questions they have towards the program or the process management, repository, whatever? He says, well, not really. I was asking about modeling, and I was asking about this. But today you have to do that. And I think that's one big thing anyway, where I think the answers or the knowledge, the common book of knowledge is there, but you have to shift the perspective to the stakeholder and the time. Because the stakeholder in 2 months' time will have different questions than he has now. He says, are you interested in the project? No, completely not. Do you have any questions? No. One month later, they come up and they're completely unsecure.
There's that wall.
There is that wall.
Yeah.
Why is this wall there? I said, yeah, exactly. So I love that story and analogy because it really hits the point. But I think having a platform to be able to have the change agents be able to answer the questions in a consistent manner to the program management at the right time and not take weeks to get an answer. And then everybody said, yeah, nobody's talked to me. You have to be there on time and have the answers on time. And that's where I think the platform could be super helpful in business transformation, because that's where a lot fail. You lose the people. If you have to say, it's like customer service. You ask a question, you don't receive an answer for a week, you say, they don't care about me, they don't love me. And you're out. You've lost them. So timing is essential there. And
it was interesting. This morning I ended up in a taxi on the way here with a customer who was coming, and randomly he made the comment, I don't know why you guys don't talk about system transformation much. I asked how the conference was going. Didn't actually even know who I was. I said, well, guess what? You found the right taxi. And we talked about it all the way here. But if you look at some of how do you use Celonis now, what I think is interesting is, yes, we have specific functionality we've pulled together in the system transformation readiness app and so forth related to that. That's not what I'm talking about at the moment. But if you look at process adherence, if you look at conformance checker, if you look at use of action flows, which are standard Celonis capabilities that anyone who has it now has, you can apply them to this context regardless of building the new system. So even like in the same way as we look at how is a user executing against work, are they succeeding, are they failing, how do we trigger them into doing something better, that same thinking is being applied en masse to an enterprise-wide transformation, which is happening at a micro level in a given use case area. So there are those capabilities now that, like I look at when I first joined Celonis, one of the things I looked at was who's on our customer list where I know those customers, and I'm going to go find all the change and training people in those customers and say, did you know you own this thing? Guess what? It can do magic for you. Because that's a population who we wouldn't normally talk to.
Exactly.
And yet they're ecstatic to have all that information about how things are happening.
Oh, absolutely.
They'd love to have all the modeling information to say, how does a job really work? What's a new way of working? And they aren't IT, and they aren't technical, and they may not even ever been invited to the party.
And that's one of the reasons why also in our framework, we have human affairs as one of the 4 key success factors for BPM adoption, because it's always forgotten. It's the communication part, it's the organization part, it's the behavioral change management that's very often...
Your MOC earlier was missing that too, but
and
you're right.
and that's part of the governance. It's another of the adoption success criteria. Russell, we got room for one more question, I think, because we need to let these people go at a certain point in time, although we can talk about this every day. Is there a last thing on your mind that you want to have answered before we end this episode?
I'll leave it up to you this time.
You leave it up to me. Oh, very good. Yeah, no, that's fine. I love
pressure along somebody else.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. We're both like Teflon. It just slides right off. So my question would be, and then either one of you can answer that, but where would this take us in about, let's say, 2-3 years from now? Where would we be?
You go first, Oliver, and I'll answer after.
Yeah,
very good.
I will come back with this Google Maps
please.
example. So I believe we can help everyone in the company with our process intelligence platform to guide them through the daily business, to help them really in the daily business, to automate in the daily business, to help them to do their job much better. And I think this is a big advantage for all of our customers to unlock employee productivity. I think there's a lot here as well. It's not only on the employee. We all know that we can unlock productivity on the organizational level. That's clear. But I think the individual process intelligence guide, the assistant that helps you through the daily business, will be something we will see in 3 years latest, or 2 years.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Looking forward to that. Carrie, any last words on that?
I'll piggyback on that. I was late to the iPhone game. I loved my BlackBerry. I had the buttons that I could drive with and type because that was legal then.
Like this, yeah.
And it's not now. But when I went to the iPhone, I didn't know what I was missing till I got there. So I thought, it's email. It's a prettier email.
Yeah.
And if I look to your point, Oliver, of what people will get, I think people don't know what they don't know right now.
Yeah.
And as we democratize and they get more information around process, if we all knew exactly what we did, we wouldn't need Celonis. If we all knew exactly what we did and we did it right all the time, we'd be perfect, which we aren't. So I see the democratization and the additional adding of information to different sources and different stakeholder groups.
Yes.
Giving agency, giving power, giving information that allows people to make better choices far beyond the reaches of a process team, far beyond the reaches of a program team, and really within an organization. And then that dot of where I am on that map gives me agency to pick how I move and how I navigate through my organization with a lot more intelligence in a way that isn't so frightening and isn't so hard and doesn't feel so untouchable. And I don't need to be super smart and techie to have.
Yeah.
I've just got really good information that I can use to do my job.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, Russell, that takes us to the end of this episode. You enjoyed it?
I really did. I feel it. Empowerment.
Empowerment
by processes. That was the final take. That was
indeed.
That was brilliant.
That was a brilliant closing.
So
thank you very much.
Thanks.
Carrie,
Thanks,
Oliver,
Russell.
Pleasure.
thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Caspar.
And to our listeners, catch you next episode.
Thanks, Kerry.
Thank
Enjoy.
you.
Thank you, everybody.
Enjoy.